So we're going to carry on then, looking at God's Providence of Restoration, moving on to Noah's family now. So we can say then that Noah's family is going like Abraham, like Adam's family. So Adam and Eve had two sons, Cain and Abel. And God's hope and expectation was that even if the fall took place, God's hope and expectation is that Adam and Eve had confessed what they'd done, owned up, and said, yeah, sorry God, we ate the fruit. And God would have forgiven them. The process of restoration got started straight away with Adam and Eve. So because they didn't do that and they weren't able to separate from Satan, as we talked about before, then, I've tried wondering where you are. Then Adam and Eve had two children, Cain and Abel, and through this then God tried to restore what went wrong at the fall. But we saw that with Cain and Abel, because both sides, both Cain and Abel, didn't behave in the right way, didn't do the right things, then Cain ended up killing Abel. And then it says that God gave Adam and Eve a third son, Seth, and after that also Adam and Eve had quite a few other children. And then the Bible, it says that 1,600 years and 10 generations later, then from Seth's family, from Seth's lineage, came Noah. And it records the names of those 10 generations. Obviously, in terms of history, it would have been.
So what's the Nama?
Nama, good question. Glad somebody's reading the slides.
Yeah.
That's Noah's wife.
Noah's wife, yeah. But the Bible never mentions it. Only, I think, it's not the Quran or the Talmud?
It's in the Talmud, yeah.
It's the Talmud, yeah, that's also.
There was a Nama in the Bible, but it's not clear that she was Noah's wife. But yeah, the Talmud says she was Noah's wife.
Does it say 1,600 years in the Bible?
As far as I know, I haven't actually added them up myself, but I'm just taking it for granted that somebody did. Some of the people, though, they lived for a long, long time. And so the idea here was that Noah pretty much is still alive in the time of Abraham. It was, anyway. And so Noah and his wife, then they had 3 sons as well. So these 3 sons then mean that there were 8 members of Noah's family, which represented the 8 members of Adam's family, Adam and Eve's family. So the idea here is that God is setting things up to do a sort of role play. You know, to put these 8 people in a similar kind of situation that Adam's family were in, and this time instead of doing the wrong thing, continuing the same pattern of wrong behaviour established in Adam's family, they'd actually do the right thing and restore what went wrong. And any ideas why 10 generations? Why 10 generations?
Restoration of the principal growth period.
Yes, if you divide the 3 stages of growth into
Stages, parts, you know.
Formation,
Then each section has three parts, you know.
That's right.
So the last one is the Arabic number is number 10.
Number 10. So number 10 then represents unity, represents oneness with God, entering the direct dominion of God. So here the idea was there were going to be these 10 generations were supposed to achieve a certain kind of, you know, status or standard. And so that was the idea. That after 10 generations, the world should be a good place for God to be able to start working again. But when we look at it, and so that's why the 40 days flood judgment is connected to that 10 generations. But when 10 generations have passed, and God saw the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. And the Lord was sorry that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him to his heart. So the Lord said, I'll blot out man, whom I've created from the face of the ground, man and beasts and creeping things, and the birds of the air, for I'm sorry that I made them. So what do you think about that?
Such a sadness.
Yeah, incredible. Grief. Yeah. God grieved. So why did God grieve?
So much evil, so much.
Yeah, because
This idea was not realized.
yes. So you know, God was hoping to create a world of peace and joy and happiness, and his children be incredibly happy. But the reality was a world of murder, robbery, rape, And so his children, instead of living in peace and joy and happiness, they were just suffering, being abused and being oppressed and being murdered and all sorts of terrible things happening. And so when God looked at the world, he felt sorry that he created human beings, because he felt sorry for the situation to which human beings were being born, a world of terrible evil and suffering and wickedness. So in that sense, God then regretted creating human beings, because he thought, well, and sometimes parents feel the same way. You know, they think, oh, you know, I brought my children into this world, and this has happened, that's happened, that's happened, and you know, all the things which I hope would have come about for my children, actually because of the situation in which I'm living, you know, exactly the opposite has happened. It's also a great pain for parents when they can't give their children what they hope to be able to give them when they, you know, when they got married and thought about having a family, because you know, things turn out very differently maybe to what they expected or hoped. So it's out of grief. Yeah, so when God thinks, okay, I'll blot out people, kill, you know, wipe everybody out, it was the idea here that if everybody drowns, if everybody dies, then nobody's going to be born into this hell kind of feeling, you know what I mean? It's better to stop everything, put everybody in the spiritual world, than for more people to be born and this world of incredible suffering and evil continuing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So how do you think, I mean, who came, so this is obviously written by somebody, so where did this come from? I think God dictated it. How do you,
Did Moses write it? Did Moses write the 5 books or 5
Yes,
books?
there were some traditions from before, but I think there was a story because I heard also somewhere that there was some problem between angels and men procreating some kind of all kind of beings and so forth, which were nothing to do with the principle and which could cause all kind of problem. So
Okay.
there were all kind of anomalies and all kind of things.
Traditionally it's understood that Moses wrote the first five books. So where did he get it from? Dictation? Or do you think?
It's passed down.
I think these are legends and traditions and stories that are passed
Yes,
down.
and the Egyptian had a lot of, I think, libraries and had a lot of information which he must have learned.
Well, that's
because it
also
was,
a good point. I'm sure he would have. Yeah,
Is this
studied
where
all
the
these things.
philosophy of oral tradition began? Oral tradition, that is, it goes down from, the story starts down from one generation to the next, William. Oral tradition.
Yeah, there is a sense of an oral tradition which is later written down.
Oh, I see.
But this story also is not unique.
Yeah.
You find this story quite in many places in the ancient world have this story, or a similar, not this story, they have a similar kind of flood story.
I see.
And some of the flood stories are older. And there's a flood story of Gilgamesh epic, that's right.
Yeah.
And it came from Babylon, and which is where Abraham came from. So as I think a lot of these are the teachings of Abraham. But then the story that you find in the flood with Noah has its own particular kind of spin or interpretation, which is quite distinct to the other flood stories and narratives. Yeah. And so I think part of it is to do with why did it happen? Yeah. And so sometimes people think, well, a great flood has taken place, a tsunami's taken place, an earthquake's taken place. That's because God is angry and God is punishing us. Is that what this story says? No, is that what this explanation says? God did it out of anger.
No.
I don't think even here that God did things out of anger.
Well, that's what I'm saying. In some of these stories, it's out of anger.
Yeah.
But in this particular telling, it's not out of anger, it's out of grief of a parent grieving over what's happened to his children. So it's a very different kind of... So sometimes people say, oh, God got angry and caused a flood. That's not the biblical story. That's a story you find in other stories you find. So these are stories that are floating around. Probably some historical background to them. And then Abraham, I think, took this story And because of his own personal encounter, experience with God, and God is a God of love, but also a God of suffering, then he told the story in this particular way, revealing God's heart and suffering as the motivation for why God did it, or why it took place. Anyway, so restoration Noah's family then. So as we looked at before, you need someone who has to restore the foundation of faith. So this is Noah. And we looked at this before, when we looked at foundation of faith in much more detail, as an offering, which is the ark. The period of time, which is 40 days. So what's the number 40 represent?
Separation from Satan.
Okay, so why does the number 40 represent separation from Satan?
I think that when you talk about 10, in theology we talk about formation, growth, completion, being in 3 stages. And we say first stage formation, growth, completion. That is like, and say multiplied by 10, but substantially I think that formation, growth, completion are like 4 stages. So 10 unity number multiplied by 4 makes 40. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, man.
Okay, so we've got these 4 generations.
Yes.
Sorry, 10 generations of families. Families number 4. The 10 times 4 is 40.
Yes.
So these, as I said, during this period of 1600 years and 10 generations, the world should have got to the point where God could intervene and make it a better place. But actually Satan had invaded those 1600 years and those 10 generations. So to restore that, then that's where the number 40 comes from, to restore the number 4 going through 10 different stages. And so that the flood judgment then is to restore, indemnify that 1600 year period that was invaded by Satan.
What's that? 40, 1600.
Okay, so need to restore the foundation of faith, need to restore the foundation of substance, which we'll look at later. And then this would have created a foundation for God to be able to send the Messiah. And then for this to happen, they required a combination of divine grace and human will, for God's will to be done, for God to be able to send the Messiah. Okay, so look at this in a bit more detail. So a central person, I said, was Noah. And, central person Noah, and the offering then was the ark. The ark then represented the universe, just as Cain and Abel, they made offerings represented all creation. So, restoring the foundation of faith is restoring also the relationship with the creation. And so this offering then represented this universe, 3 stages in it. And then the tradition is that Noah then went out it took 120 years to build the ark. It doesn't actually say that in the Bible. This is from the Talmud. And the understanding from the Talmud is during this period then, Noah went out and preached for 120 years. So what was he trying to do? What was he preaching?
God's word. God's word.
Okay, what do you think he was telling people to do?
Try to repent. Try to
Repent and?
come back to God.
Sorry?
Dwelling in the ark.
Build an ark, yeah. He said there's going to be a flood. Just like Jonah went to Nineveh and said your city's going to be destroyed if you don't repent. So Noah then had some kind of intuition that there's going to be a terrible environmental catastrophe. There's going to be an incredible flood. And so I think during 120 years, he would have gone around telling people, there's going to be some kind of terrible flood, disaster. You need to repent and you need to go and build your own ship, your own boat. Do you think God only wanted to save Noah and his family?
Not really. I think he wants to save more than one.
I think he wanted to save everybody. So Noah then was like a prophet going around telling everybody there's going to be this incredible disaster. You need to repent, you need to build your own ship or lifeboats, so when the flood comes you'll be saved, you won't all be drowned. But according to the story, the Talmud, nobody paid any attention to Noah. They just mocked him and made fun of him. And he was actually, in that sense, he's very, very unsuccessful in terms of finding anybody who would listen to him and pay any attention to him. Kind of tragic in that sense. So, what do you think about the flood then? Do you think God sent the flood?
It's a natural disaster.
It's just a natural disaster. I think it's something that would have taken place anyway. You know, it's like earthquakes, tsunamis, these are just natural phenomena that take place anyway because of the geological structure of the world. So even if there had been no fall, there still would have been earthquakes and volcanoes and tsunamis and, you know, floods from time to time. The only difference is if there had been no fall, people would have been much more sensitive, I think, to the natural environment and would have been able to, you know, adjust themselves so they wouldn't build nuclear power stations on a fault line of a volcano or an earthquake, for example. Stupid. Or we'll do this or do that or the other. And it's the same when that tsunami happened a few years ago. People often say that a lot of the animals, they, you know, weren't drowned because they fled to higher ground. Because they had some kind of sensitivity, some kind of intuition that something's going to take place. So I think if there hadn't been a fall, I think we would be much more in tune with the natural world. So we would have picked up these kind of alarm signals and been able to, you know, do what was necessary to escape. So a lot more people, I think, would have been able to do that. So I think this is just, and so sometimes these things happen. I remember, maybe it's the Bible, I don't remember what time. Do you remember the Aberfan disaster?
Yeah. In Wales, huh?
That's right. There was
mining disaster.
That's right. It was, anyway, there was a coal mine, and there's a lot of waste comes out of a coal mine, so they piled up this huge mountain of waste product. And it was just outside the village. And, you know, it's raining and raining. Anyway, the coal board sent some inspectors along and they said, it's not safe. You need to do something about it. And then somebody had a dream, it's going to, you know, collapse. And then one day, rain and rain and rain, and there was this huge landslide. And it, you know, it washed away the school when it was open. And I can't remember how many children died and teachers died. So there's that sense then, that sometimes before these kind of natural disasters take place, sometimes people have dreams. Often there's some kind of warning. But generally speaking, most people, they just ignore these kind of warnings. Oh, that was just a dream, or oh, you know, don't be silly. Yes. And it's very hard actually to know which is a real warning, which is just not, to develop those kind of spiritual antennae, as it were. And so I think Noah obviously had that in some way. Anyway, as I said, the time period is a 40-day flood. And then Noah's family, during this period of 40 days, they were supposed to separate from Satan and purify themselves as a family, representing all the other 10 generations of families. Yeah? So their family, representing these 10 generations of that had gone before, were to separate from Satan to purify themselves during this period of the 40-day flood. And then God said, in Genesis, 3 times God said, you shall come into the ark, you, your sons, your wife, and your sons' wives. So 3 times. So try and imagine, picture, what did it look like when Noah's family went into the ark? What formation did they go into the ark?
In pairs.
Okay, read it again.
Did the animals go in twos, male and female?
Animals went in pairs, yes, male and female together. But how did Noah's family go into the ark?
Male
I
first.
think Noah and Noah,
Family.
No? Read what does it say, Savaya?
Ham, Shem and Japheth and their wives.
It says Noah,
And his son.
you shall come into the ark, you, your sons, your wife, and your sons' wives. So how do they go in? Chris knows the answer.
3 generations.
What?
3 generations.
Not 3 generations.
No, so
Yeah.
2
Separate.
2
generations.
generations, but it's not just Noah and his wife, but it's also the son and their wives.
Yeah, but how, describe to me how they went into the ark. What would you have seen?
Men first.
Men first, and then...
Women second.
So they went in, men and women went in
Separate.
separately.
Oh yes.
When you separate, it says this 3 times, so when it's something that says in the Bible 3 times, it means it's really important. Okay, so what do you think the sleeping arrangements were like in the ark?
I think men and women were supposed to be separate.
That's right,
During that particular period, separation period.
there's a dormitory for the men and a dormitory for the women.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay? And then the Talmud, Noah, it says, Noah told his family not to have sexual relations during the flood judgment. So this is a traditional understanding, interpretation of the early church fathers. I never noticed this before. I just happened to be, it's really quite recent actually. I mean, the part about the Talmud, I discovered this in 1982 when I was looking in the Talmud about, they shouldn't have sexual relations during the flood. But it's only a couple of years ago, maybe 4 years ago, I was looking at some church fathers' commentaries upon interpretations on this, and then they pointed out this verse here that they went in separately, and there was separate sleeping accommodation in the ark. I never noticed it until just a few years ago. Okay, so we understand that God is a mathematical being, and these numbers in the principle of creation need to be restored. And so we'll have a look at these. So the numbers in the principle of creation, number 1 represents God. And number 2 is dual characteristics. Number 3 is comes from the origin, division, union. And then from that we get the 3 stages of growth: formation, growth and completion. So you get the 4 position foundation there, 1 divided into 2, uniting together as 4 positions, 3 stages of growth, which can also be divided into 3 stages each. Then you get that 4 plus 3, that gives you 7. And then there's 4 times 3, that's the triple objective purpose, which gives you 12. So each of these can have, anyway, that's about relationships within the 4 position foundation. There are 12 possible relationships, depending who's subject and who's object. And then 3 times 7, so generally speaking, in terms of growth, one thinks of these 3 stages of growth, each representing 7 years or 7 stages. And so 21 then is the number of reaching maturity or perfection. And then 4 times 10, as I explained before, is the number 40. And so when we look at Noah's family, we can see this, how these numbers are restored. God, number 1, dual characteristics. This is the pairs of animals that go into the ark. There's 3 stages of growth, the 3 different levels in the ark. The 12 relationships and the 4 position foundation. This is Noah going out preaching, trying to relate to all these different kinds of people for 120 years. Then the 40, that's the 10 generations. That's the 40-day flood judgment. And then 21 is the dove sent out 3 times after 7 days. Okay, and have a look at the timeline, briefly. So it's 1600 years from Adam to Noah, 120 years of preaching and building the ark, 40 days and nights of rain, then the ark lands on Mount Ararat, and 40 days later Noah sends out the raven, and 7 days later he sends out a dove, then the dove the 2nd time, and then the dove the 3rd time, and then after that it's the 1st day of the new year. The earth is dry and new beginning. So if you look at those numbers, can you see where those numbers recur in later historical providences? John?
Any number?
No, just a pattern. There's an overall pattern there. Can you see where that pattern comes up again?
Is it Moses? Is it Moses?
No. It's a bigger picture than just Moses. I mean, they do come up again in Moses' course, yeah.
Bueno, pues ya forse de convergir.
Okay, 1600 years, what does that represent?
10 generations.
Okay, and you could also think of it as not just 1600 years, but 400 years.
Yeah.
Okay. Any closer? Okay. Right, and there's 400 years. When they came out of Exodus, there's 400 years period of the judges.
Oh yes.
And then what came after the 400 year period of the judges?
The kings,
which period lasted for how long?
120,
120 years. And after the period United Kingdom, what happened then?
division.
Okay, divided kingdom for how many years?
I think 120 years, is it?
No, 120 is the United Kingdom.
I see.
The divided kingdom.
210 divided.
210 years, in 210 years.
What?
I think 210.
No. After the divided kingdoms for how long?
Well, altogether that was 400, but
Exactly, 400 years.
The
Yeah.
addition of the two.
Yeah, it's 400 years, yeah.
Mhm.
And after that, what happened?
Well, the invasions.
They were taken into
Slavery.
captivity
Captivity in Babylon.
For how long?
Is it not
210 years.
for 70 years.
70 years?
and then
And then it's been 140 years,
And
moving their way back.
then there's a return,
Yes, 40 years, I think.
yes, and so that 70 plus 140 makes
210 years.
210.
Yes.
And then 40 years, 400 years.
400 years preparation.
That's
to the
right.
Messiah.
Okay, so that's what's interesting, isn't it?
Mm.
You got 1600 represents 400, 120 United Kingdom,
Mm.
40, which is 400 divided kingdom.
Mm.
And then you got you got this 21 comes in there again. 40 days later, 21. So you can see these numbers. It's kind of interesting.
Interesting, yeah. They are repeating
These
historical
numbers, the
parallels.
pattern is ordered. The pattern
Mm.
these numbers are even
Mm.
prefigured in Moses
Yeah.
and Abraham and Noah's course.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway,
Because you said the other time that these numbers are repeated because of mistakes that have been made anyway. That's historical parallels because of mistakes that are made in God's providence.
right. So they're just making mistakes again.
Yeah.
Okay. Now what's interesting? They landed on Mount Ararat, which is in which country nowadays?
And it's not
Turkey.
Iraq.
No, it's in Turkey.
In Turkey, yes.
And Armenia regards it as their mountain, Armenians. Historically, it used to be part of Armenia.
Mm.
Anyway, so they landed on Mount Ararat, and then God said to Noah, "Go forth from the ark, you and your wife, and your sons' wives with you." So when they came out of the ark, how did they come out?
Older people first.
Sorry?
Older people.
Older people first, yeah. How else?
The same way,
No, not the same way. No, that's the whole
or
point.
united.
Sorry?
United, you and your wife.
That's right. So they came out as couples.
Two
They went in, all the men went in,
Yeah.
first,
Yeah.
male dormitory, all the women went in, female dormitory.
Yeah.
When they came out as couples.
Yeah.
God said to Noah, "You and your wife,
Mhm.
go out, and your sons' wives with you."
Mm.
Okay, so again, this is the understanding, the interpretation, traditional interpretation is that God allowed, from that point, then they were to carry on and continue, restart conjugal relations. This is the beginning of a new start as couples. And then Noah built an altar to the Lord and offered burnt offerings on the altar. And God blessed Noah and his sons and said to them, "Be fruitful, multiply, and fill the earth." So God gave to Noah and his family the same blessings, be fruitful and multiply and have dominion, that God gave to Adam and Eve. So it's like a new start, a new beginning. And then God gave Noah's family what's called the Noahide Code. This is the idea that 7 basic laws for all humanity, which is supposed to apply to all human beings. Because the biblical understanding is all human beings are descended from Noah. The Jews come from Abraham, but all human beings are descended from Noah. And these are the laws that God gave to all human beings. First is no idolatry. You shouldn't worship idols. And there's a lot of idolatry and idol worship around at the moment. And you shall not murder. You shall not steal. No sexual immorality, no adultery, no blasphemy, taking God's name in vain. No eating flesh from living creatures, and establishment of courts. So there's a very important emphasis here on establishment of courts of law, the idea that there should be justice. Really very, very important. To have peace, you have to have justice. You can't have peace without justice. Justice is really very important. What's the idea here? Very interesting. No eating flesh from living creatures. this is understood, you should take care of animals. You shouldn't be cruel to animals. Yeah? This is the idea of animal cruelty has been something which God abhors. Again, this is the, you know, nowadays you get the animal rights people, you know, banging on all the time. But, you know, this is what was revealed in Noah's time, how many thousands of years ago. And, you know, for many thousands of years people have treated animals really cruelly. And, you know, in law, for example, in France, animals are just regarded as things. They're not even regarded as living creatures in that sense. It's taken people a long time to get to the point of, you know, taking care of, respecting our animals. Okay, so foundational substance then. Okay, so for Ham, who was the second son, and he would, for him to stand, as it says in the principle, for Ham to stand in the position of Abel as one who succeeded in making a symbolic offering, he had to become inseparably one in heart with his father Noah. So the original Abel, he made the offering successfully, lots of things he did unsuccessfully, but he made the offering successfully. He restored the foundation of faith. But here in this story, it's Noah's the one who built the ark. So Noah's the one who restored the foundation of faith. So in order for Ham to stand in the position of Abel as a central figure, he needs to inherit the foundation of faith from Noah. Okay? So in order to inherit the foundation of faith from Noah, he has to be one in heart with Noah. He has to love Noah and be loyal to Noah, and has to basically become Noah's favourite son. Yeah, one in heart with Noah. And then if he became one in heart with Noah, and everyone could see that, you know, he was Noah's favourite, then he would then be able to stand in the position of Abel, and he'd have to obviously be not like the original Abel, who was arrogant, but be very humble and win the love and respect of his older brothers, Shem, and then make the indemnity condition move to overcome fallen nature, which we talked about last week. Okay, then we get the curious incident in the tent. So Noah planted a vineyard, and then he makes wine and became drunk and fell asleep naked inside his tent. Then Ham saw Noah lying naked in the tent, and he went and told Shem and Japheth they should come up and cover Noah. And so they covered Noah, and then Noah woke up and cursed Ham's son Canaan. So this is kind of curious, because that's basically the end of the story, pretty much. So what's going on here? So this is basically a test of Ham's unity with Noah. So when Ham saw Noah lying naked in the tent, he felt ashamed of Noah. Yeah, so he looked at Noah from his own point of view, and he judged Noah. He felt ashamed of his father. Instead of feeling proud of his father, he felt ashamed of his father. And then he went along and told his other brothers, you know, do you know what, you know, Dad's doing? He's fallen asleep, he got drunk, and he fell asleep naked in this tent. How disgusting. Yes? And so he stirred up in shame in his brothers, and they felt ashamed of their father instead of being proud of their father, and they went over and they covered him up. And then when Noah woke up, he chastised Ham. So what had happened here? Ham had failed to love Noah from God's point of view. He left his position of responsibility and reversed the order of dominion by dominating his brothers and multiplied evil. So what he'd done here, he failed to inherit the foundation of faith from Noah. And so Noah, Satan then, was able to invade the foundation of faith here, and so the foundation of substance wasn't established. So let's go through this in a bit more detail. Why was it a sin to feel ashamed? So Satan needs an object partner to exist and act. Okay, otherwise Satan cannot act if he has nobody to act through. Satan is a being in the spiritual world, but there's nobody through whom he can act. He can't do any evil. You know, if nobody cooperated with Satan, nobody gave in to the evil thoughts and desires, there'd be no murder, robbery, rape, or anything else going on with that. No. It's, you know, Satan needs an object partner in order to be able to be Satan and to act. So a sin then is something which enables Satan to invade. And sin then is something which enables Satan to invade your mind, your thoughts, your emotions, your feelings, and then your actions become evil. You do evil actions, yeah? So, before the fall, Adam and Eve were naked and they were not ashamed. They were innocent. They were brother and sister. They felt no sense of shame, yeah? But then after the fall, they were ashamed because of what they'd done. So after the flood, then Noah's family should have separated from Satan and been innocent. So they spent 40 days during this flood judgment to separate from Satan, and to restore these 10 generations that had been invaded by Satan. So after the flood, then they should have separated from Satan and they should have been innocent, like Adam and Eve were innocent. So feeling ashamed then showed that they were still connected to Satan's lineage. Yeah? And so because Ham felt ashamed, then he was separated in half from Noah, then he covered Noah up. So because he felt ashamed of his father, he judged his father, he accused his father, he couldn't be one in heart with his father, he wasn't proud of his father. So because he felt ashamed, he covered Noah up. And so because of this, he couldn't inherit the position of Abel from Noah. He couldn't inherit Noah's foundation of faith. That makes sense? Any other questions? Or does that all make sense?
Yes, it does, but
But what?
something that went on in the ark that led to this point,
Yeah.
Because one thing that is very, very clear is that, especially when Adam and Eve couldn't unite, Noah and Nema, actually, it seems as if Nema was a bit of a reluctant wife, so she couldn't get her sons to unite with them, what their father was doing, and also Ham's mistake inside the ark with his wife as well.
Yeah, we're going to come to that in a minute.
Oh, come back. Okay, sorry. Because when you said, is that over, because you just like you explained the story of people last week,
Yeah.
and their wives, I thought that maybe you want me to come to that, that's why, sorry about that. So anyway,
Okay.
I'll let you deal with it because
John.
you can explain it a lot better.
John?
Why did Noah get himself drunk in the first place?
Okay, good point. We'll come to that. Anyway, so for me this is always a puzzle. I was never satisfied with his explanation. Because if you walk into a room and you blush, can you stop yourself from blushing? Nobody. You find yourself in a certain situation and you blush, you react. You can't stop that. It's a natural response. Yeah? So when I thought, okay, Ham felt ashamed of, and that's why everything went wrong. I thought, well, how can you really blame Ham just for blushing and feeling ashamed? It's just a spontaneous reaction. There must be much more to it than this. Then I thought, okay, if they separated from Satan during this 40-day flood judgment, why should Ham still have this feeling of shame? Why should he still, as it says in the principle, be connected to Satan's lineage? There must have been some basis for Satan to be able to invade. So what was it? And so the question is then, why did Ham feel ashamed? So this is something that bothered me ever since I first heard the principle. I was never satisfied with the explanation. I felt it didn't go deeply enough into what really happened. Anyway, so when I was wandering around Manchester University Library in 1982, I think it was, or 83, then I came across this Talmud. I looked up Noah and came across a very interesting thing. Because it says here in the Bible, it says in the principle, Ham, like Adam's family, had formed a shameful bond of kinship with Satan. It says this in the principle, Ham, like Adam's family, had formed a shameful bond of kinship with Satan. But it doesn't explain how or what happened. And then again, in divine principle, it says, this is, happens to be the consummation of human history, but anyway, it says Ham committed a sinful act which reaffirmed the fall. This is a throwaway sentence in the consummation of human history. But again, it doesn't explain what. Father never explained it, nobody else ever explained it. But the Talmud, though, says that Ham and his wife had sexual relations during the period of the flood. So if you remember then, they've got that Noah told his family during this 40-day period we're not to have sexual relations. So they go in separately, they sleep separately, and then they come out again as couples to restart the family, married, conjugal life. But during the period of the flood judgment in the ark, they weren't to have sexual relations. The Talmud says that Ham and his wife had sexual relations during the period of the flood. And so when Ham saw Noah lying naked in the tent, what Ham was doing is projecting his own sense of guilt onto Noah. Noah was innocent. Noah hadn't done anything wrong. Ham himself was guilty, and he's projecting that, his own sin, onto Noah. And so in that sense he's accusing Noah of his own sin. Okay, so it's like a sort of step-by-step stage. So what should have happened then? Okay, ideally, plan A was, okay, plan A, obviously, nothing would have gone wrong at all. Anyway, plan A, you got the flood. Plan A was Noah's family would have maintained sexual purity during the period of the flood. Then they would have come out of the ark. Everything, they had a new start, a new beginning. Noah might have got drunk and fallen asleep naked. Ham would have seen him and thought to himself, oh, poor dad, he worked so hard for 120 years. We didn't give him the support he needed. He deserves to get drunk and, you know, okay, no problem. Yes, he should have felt like that. He should have had compassion on his father. Okay, but he didn't. Okay, so what did happen is Ham and his wife fell. So what should have happened next? If Ham and his wife fell, what should have happened next?
Should have perhaps felt guilty and repented.
Okay.
Possibly.
Yeah, so they should have said, they should have gone to Noah the next morning and said, so sorry Dad, so sorry Mum, you know, we were out looking at the stars last night, we got too close and we had sexual relations, we're really sorry that we broke the condition. Okay, then what would have happened?
Then maybe there could have been an extra indemnity period or something like that.
Yes, then Noah would have said, okay, why don't we start again for another 40 days, yeah? So just like when God spoke to Adam and Eve, what happened? They denied it, yes? They wouldn't take responsibility, and so that became a problem. So if Ham and his wife had said to Noah and, you know, Noah, so sorry Mom and Dad, you know, we just couldn't control ourselves last night, etc., etc., etc. Okay, we understand, it's not easy, you know, make another condition, whatever, 40 days. Okay. So that was plan B. And then Ham could have restored that, and then he could have, you know, wouldn't have felt ashamed seeing Noah lying naked in the tent. That's plan B. Okay, that didn't work out because they didn't confess. Plan C, okay, he saw Noah lying naked in the tent and he felt ashamed. So what should happen next then?
I think basically what Ham should have, if Ham had been really pure, all he should have done is just to go and cover his father, you know, by himself anyway, and that, you know.
Okay. I mean, okay, he should. So even though he saw and he may have felt ashamed, instead of judging Noah, he should have still felt compassion on his father. Oh, you know, Dad worked all this time. You know, I'm not going to tell anybody. I'll just keep it to myself. Yeah, this kind of feeling. And then that would have been better. Okay, but then still, this relationship between him and Noah really needs to be restored. Okay. Okay, but he didn't do that. Keep it to himself. Instead, he went to his brothers. So how should his brothers have responded?
With understanding and compassion.
Sorry?
With understanding and compassion.
Yes, they should have said, why do you tell, you know, shut up, Ham. You know, you're not the oldest here, you didn't give you a good slap. You know, you shouldn't go around telling stories about Dad. Don't you know how hard he worked? Don't you realise, etc., etc., etc. And they should have put Ham in his place. Yeah? Okay? But instead, they allowed themselves to be dominated by Ham, so that was another mistake. Okay? So if Ham had made that mistake and tried to persuade his brothers to go and cover Noah up, but if they had said, no, we're not going to do it, then what could have happened?
They could have ignored the
Well, one of those brothers then could have stood in the position of Abel. Ham then would have failed. Then the youngest son, which was Japheth, he then would have become the new Abel. Yes? You understand? So it wasn't just one thing. If there's one thing happened, okay, plan A failed, okay, there's plan B. Okay? Plan B fails, all right, there's a plan C. Plan C fails, plan D. Plan D fails, there's a plan E. So one thing after another went wrong. Okay? Just because one thing went wrong, it didn't mean the whole thing was washed out automatically. Yeah? There were other possibilities. Yes? Until eventually there's, because the brothers allowed themselves to be dominated by Ham, and all together they went and felt ashamed, covered Noah up, then that was it, finished. There's no other possibility going forward. There's no longer any possibility of anybody inheriting the foundation of faith. If Ham didn't inherit the foundation of faith, maybe one of his brothers could have. But because they also covered Noah up, that means nobody could have inherited the foundation of faith. Does that make sense? This is really important in the problem. It's not just, oh, plan happened, everything's finished. But there's plan A, and God moves to plan B, and plan to C, plan D. Yeah, you can see this over and over again when we look at Moses' course, Jesus' course. There's always, various backup plans come about. And even more when we look at true parents' life. So what lessons can we learn from Noah's family? Well, first of all, Ham should have been grateful to his father for saving the life of his family. I said he should have had compassion for his father after all that he'd done. And even if he fell, he should have overcome his shameful feelings and treated his father with respect, which is what he didn't do. The important lesson from this: if you make a bad condition, indemnify it quickly, or Satan can use it to invade something important. So this is the point. Ham made this mistake, yes, and then some days, weeks, months, years, we don't know how much longer, then Satan was able to invade his emotions and his feelings and his thoughts, yes, because he had this, Satan was, committed a sin, and he hadn't confessed, he hadn't repented, yes, he hadn't indemnified the mistake that he made. So days, years, months later, Satan was able, when he found himself in this really important situation, he reacted in the wrong way. And sometimes when we look at ourselves, sometimes we wonder, why did I react like that? You know what I mean? Why did I react so badly? Yes, and sometimes it's because of something unresolved in the past. It may have been, sometimes when I was a teacher, sometimes children come to school and, you'd say something and they'd go, and you think, what did I say? Why did they react so badly? It's not because of what I said, it's because there were certain issues going on at home, before they came to school, which hadn't been resolved. And so when something happened, then Satan could invade. In that sense, they reacted emotionally in their thoughts and then their actions in all kinds of bad ways, which have got nothing to do with the actual situation or the teacher. It's because of unresolved issues from the past. And this is life is like this. We all have a lot of baggage. From our childhood, from friendships, from our parents, from our brothers and sisters, from our husband and wife. We carry a lot of baggage with us. And sometimes it becomes a pattern of thinking, a pattern of feeling, and we end up reacting badly in certain situations because we haven't resolved this stuff. And so that's why every day it's very important to think about the day, reflect on the day, repent, apologise to people we need to apologise to. Try and make up anything that we've done wrong during the day, so that we start off the next day a bit clear, clean slate in that sense, and then we don't find things, getting Satan invading days, months, years later, and reacting in ways we think, why did I say that? Why did I do that? Well, it's because of something you did, some unresolved thing from many years before sometimes comes along. And so, that's what restoration is about, really. Restoration is going through all these things, all the sort of hang-ups, the baggage, the stuff that we're carrying around inside us and our thoughts and our emotions, our feelings. Trying to, reflect, think about, why do I feel this way? Why is it that I feel this? Is it because of the way I was treated as a child? Is it because of this or because of that or the other? Is that why I'm feeling that way today? Okay, that's what happened in my past. How can I resolve that today? How can I, put this right? Otherwise, I'm going to be stuck in this for maybe for the rest of my life. So, that's why it's always good when one reacts in a certain way, a good way or a bad way, to think about it. You know, why did I do this? Why did I say that? Why did that? You know, what is it inside me that reacted in that way that I'm maybe not even aware of, that I need to bring up to the surface, I need to resolve, I need to deal with, I need to indemnify, I need to correct, you know, a certain pattern of, you know, thinking or speaking or behaving or something. That's what I think is the main lesson from this. Yeah, it's about that. But it's also the idea, you know, okay, something goes wrong. We all make. Anybody here never made a mistake? Everybody makes mistakes. Life is a series of mistakes. It's not a problem that one makes a mistake. It's not a problem that anybody here never sinned. Okay. It's not a problem that we don't sin. We all sin. The only problem is when we don't admit it, confess, and apologise and indemnify and restore it. That's the only problem. It's not a problem making mistakes. You know. Okay, I made a mistake. That was a mistake. It was a sin. That wasn't a problem. It only became a problem because he didn't restore it. The same with Adam and Eve. You know, I mean, it's a disaster what happened, but it became even worse because they didn't own up and apologise, repent, and indemnify it. Yeah, and that became much worse. So we all make mistakes. We all sin. You know, that's not a problem. You know, the problem becomes when we just deny it or don't take responsibility, don't own up, don't confess, don't apologise, and then it becomes part of us. It becomes embedded in our nature, and then it becomes a problem. All right, I went through that quite quickly because I started really late, so I want to finish later than normal. You know, thanks all for listening and being so
Thank you
attentive.
so much. Well,
Inspiring.